Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Trankoalaty. Today we're going to be talking about Animorphs number 5, the Predator. As you can see, it has Marco on the cover turning into a gorilla, with a gorilla in the alleyway as the picture inside. That's not where gorillas belong. The animation in the corner is back because this book is an original, so here is that on the screen now. This book was released in December of 1996. It's Marco's first book. It comes in at 150 pages. So I totally remember Marco being a gorilla a lot, but the book cover and the title, no idea what this one could be about, what it's going to tackle, what the story is going to be before I read it. So I guess with that, let's learn what this gorilla fighter from Earth gets up to. The book opens with Marco walking home from a 7-Eleven a little bit after 10 o'clock at night. The neighborhood is a little bit rough, especially at night. And on his way back, he hears an old man getting mugged in an alleyway by 3 guys. And he decides to intervene. He goes into the alley and hides behind a dumpster and starts morphing into a gorilla. The gorilla that we saw in the picture there. My questions start already. Marco lives with his dad. His mom is dead. His dad is barely making ends meet and doing like odd jobs and as a janitor and stuff. And hence they live in a rough neighborhood. And he's about to morph into a gorilla. And that's going to definitely destroy his clothing, right? Which he can't have a lot of. So that's why I'm like coming up with questions already. I wonder if that's just going to come up in the next few pages I've asked before I continued reading. It does not. Just putting that out there. Also, I don't know that the others sounded this way particularly, but Marco, I definitely read with like that 90s edgy kid voice. Like, makes me think of like a Disney Channel tough guy or like a tough guy on like Boy Meets World or something. You know, like, yeah, they better watch out. I'm totally going to mop the floor with these punks. Oh, it sounds like cheesy Ninja Turtles. Like, that's what it is. Yeah, 90s, like, cheesy, edgy Ninja Turtles sounding. Okay, so that's like the whole book, though. That's like how Marco narrates this book. There's a lot of that kind of dialogue in his... There's a lot of that kind of stuff in his narration. So he morphs into a gorilla. He throws the dumpster that he's hiding behind against the wall. And the 3 muggers, for some reason, don't want to run. They're like, I'm going to take on this gorilla. Get it. What? You think you're tougher than a gorilla, dude? I don't know. He tosses one of the guys behind him. Another one pulls a knife and like cuts him and he just throws him against a wall. And the other one he picks up and throws inside of the dumpster. The guy he threw against the wall, definitely seriously injured, but he's still breathing. So I guess it's fine. He throws him into the dumpster as well. The third guy pulled a gun and starts shooting him and shot him twice. And he gets behind the dumpster and uses that for cover and just rams the guy, obviously injuring him too. So they're all the muggers are down. The old guy picks up the gun and starts shooting at him at least, and he starts running away. And the whole time Marco's like, I'm like Spider-Man or like a superhero. I'm just, you know, saving the neighborhood here, until the old guy shoots at him. And then he's like, that's why you shouldn't get involved. Ungrateful people. And it's like, wouldn't you also shoot at the like giant gorilla that just sort of manifested in the middle of the city? You wouldn't be too... The gorillas are not found in alleyways. So, and the gorilla did just attack the other 3 guys. Even if they were mugging you, who's to say that the gorilla's not about to turn on you, right? The next day, they're all walking behind Cassie's house in the fields, and he's recapping how he helped this old guy, and they were so ungrateful, even though he helped them. And on top of that, he didn't get to take home his M&Ms and his milk that he bought from the 7-Eleven because he's a gorilla. He's not carrying that home. He didn't even, now that I think about it, he didn't like unmorph in that alleyway. So did he just like... he must have just went to the next alleyway over. It's okay. Wait a minute. Gunshots? Wouldn't there be police presence at least? Like, hey, we just heard a bunch of gunshots. It's fine. By the time they got there, he'd be long gone. Anyways, Jake is just like, that's not very smart to be morphing like that, Marco. And Marco's like, whatever. And he's taking this chance to like go around and introduce everyone, you know, Rachel and Jake and Cassie and Tobias. Oh my. And the only thing of note is that Jake and Cassie might be dating at this point, is like his intuition, I guess, maybe. Like, he doesn't say for sure. He's not going to ask. They're not openly dating. And it's not really clear how far in advance this is written from. Like, is it a memory of like years ago after everything's all taken care of, or is this just like, you know, a week later I wrote the memoir or what? I guess what, a memoir? What? How? I don't know. I don't know when they're writing these, but it's definitely past tense. So, but it's never clear like how far into the future it's coming from. He talks about Elfangor giving them the power to morph and the Yeerks. So at this point, I realized that it's kind of bugging me. What happened to the morphing cube that Elfangor used to give them the power? Because the last time I remember, Elfangor had them all touch it. They get the power to morph, and the Yeerks disintegrated his ship, but the cube wasn't in the ship. So where did it go? I don't remember anyone carrying it away. And the Yeerks, would they blast that too and like make that disappear? That doesn't seem very likely, because Yeerks would love to have the power to morph, right? Although they really don't like technology, it seems like. I don't know. Was Elfangor holding it while he was eaten? That doesn't make any sense. Why would the Visser be like, haha, I'll eat you and that cube too? Like, no idea what happened to it at this point, but it's just a question that's in the back of my mind. Like, where did it go? I feel like it's a big deal since it gives people the power to morph, and it's like, the way that the kids talk about it, it's their one weapon against the Yeerks. Like, it's a weapon then. So anyways, they all think Marco was reckless, but his heart's in the right place. So, and then Jake is like, Cassie and I have been talking to Axe, and Axe wants to go back to his homeworld, and it's 82 light years away. They tried to calculate what that was in miles for some reason, but weren't able to because calculators don't go that high. Do they not go that high? I feel like you could totally calculate that number, but it's actually this number right here on screen. Why would it matter the exact distance in miles? 82 light years is a long ways away. How is he going to get back? They don't have a spaceship, right? Axe wants to steal a Yeerk ship. I think that's pretty bold. They're all in the field. Axe meets them out there. Tobias is overhead, keeping a lookout. And Marco is describing Axe and the Andalites and says, nobody asked how the Andalites eat without a mouth. But I know this one. I remember this one. They eat through their hooves, just like butterflies. I mean, butterflies don't have hooves, but they eat through their feet. How are they going to get a Yeerk bug fighter to, like, commandeer? Axe will build a Yeerk distress beacon. They'll send a bug fighter. They hijack it. Bada bing, bada boom. Andalite goes home. Well, tries to go home. He doesn't actually know if that ship will make it there. So he's not even entirely sure that he can make it back to his homeworld, but like, I guess a chance is better than nothing, right? So they all take a vote on it because they like democracy here. And they voted yes. It's currently Saturday. They detail a plan with a schedule. With a schedule, Axe is going to morph into his human form. They're going to take the bus. They're going to go to the Radio Shack, get the parts he wants, and then return to Cassie's and unmorph. And all of that is going to leave about 10 minutes to spare for him to like unmorph at the end. Pretty all right. What if the bus was late? What if there was a traffic jam? What if there was just a really big line at Radio Shack? What if so many random things could go wrong, but it's okay. It's fine. I also really like the idea that we just had the parts at a Radio Shack to make like an interplanetary communication system. We just didn't know how. Like, we had all the pieces. We just didn't know that they formed that puzzle. I don't know if anyone else remembers like random TV plot lines where someone just gets a few things at Radio Shack and then builds like a teleporter in the basement. But like, that's what it makes me think of. Axe morphs into a mix of all four of them. I don't know if that's an Andalite thing, that he can mix and match their DNA in a morph like that. And I also want to know, is that only because he's got the DNA of 4 humans that like he can mix and match? Could you mix and match any animal's DNAs? And this is how we would get like a centaur Well, we already kind of sort of have centaurs with Andalites. So how about like a half bird, half horse? So like a griffin or any number of mythical creatures, right? So they take the bus to the mall. It's all going well so far. Axe is still like playing with his mouth sounds the whole time, but now I am not finding it as endearing as I did in the last book because it's like every sentence that he says. And you know what? Maybe it's because I make mouth sounds all the time and like copy noises and stuff. So like, is that ADHD? Is that autism? Is that both? I don't remember. So they get to the mall. It's kind of busy, being that it's a Saturday. Axe just starts wandering off. They're talking about like, where's the Radio Shack? I don't quite remember. And then they turn around and Axe is gone. And they're like, uh-oh, where'd he go? And he's on an escalator. Somehow he wandered away and got onto the escalator without them like catching up very quickly. Maybe it's just a really big mall and like they don't know where the Radio Shack is. I don't know. They also say that there's has a Circuit City. So yeah, nobody has those anymore either. 2 stores that are just not a thing anymore. Anyways, they take a bit to get through the crowd to catch up to him because they don't want to run and attract attention, I guess. I don't know. I feel like if you saw kids running through a mall, it wouldn't be that attention attracting, but whatever. So they catch up to Axe eventually. He's in line and they say, oh, there he is at Starbucks. You know, the coffee place. Was Starbucks not very popular back in the 90s? Is that when they got their start? I don't know. He gets a double latte for $3. Amazing. Jake paid for it. You know, they brought some money for the Radio Shack trip. They keep a better eye on him. They get to Radio Shack and Axe is just shopping, picking up parts he needs and drinking the coffee and just marveling at the ability to taste things. And he gets all the parts he needs except for a Z-space transponder. The thing that makes faster than travel light possible. We don't have that. I feel like he could have told them that, you know, that was a thing that they would need. And we could have told them like, we don't have that. But, you know, it would also have been just like, I think it would also have been like pretty funny if he just picks up some random widget and he's like, ah, here it is. The thing that makes faster than light travel possible. And it's just a part that's sitting at Radio Shack and we just don't know what it does. But that does not happen. It does not happen. Everything except for the Z-space transponder is, the zero space transponder is picked up though. So they decide to get the rest of it. And while they're paying, Axe wanders off again. Only this time he's caffeinated and he's got the overwhelming urge to eat everything and taste everything. And so they finally catch up to him. They're like, where did he go? Oh, there he is. He's in the food court, just running to each table that has leftovers on it and shoving things in his mouth and being like, and just shouting, taste. And it's like, that's pretty suspicious. Does this guy not know that we're on like, we're supposed to be rogue? This guy has no sense of like blend in very well, I guess. Maybe humans are just like that. We just don't blend in well. And also, he knows that there's a time limit. He knows that they don't want to be suspicious. Is taste really that good that it's just like overwhelming? So now, obviously, him being a menace in the mall, he's getting chased by mall cops. And he's not very good at doing people things. So trying to run, he can't do it. He's stumbling around. Running takes a coordination, you know? But he still manages to outrun the mall cops. So maybe not that coordinated after all. Jake and Marco are also running after him with the mall cops and like telling him to run, but they're like ahead. So it's mall cops, Jake and Marco, and Axe. And they're all moving in that, you know, they're all running through the mall trying to get out. Axe starts unmorphing in the middle of the mall. He is just really not good at under pressure. And so he unmorphs and one of the mall cops says, Andalite. Obviously, he's a controller, and he pulls out his gun because this is America. And so Axe disarms him with his tail. He like gets rid of a few fingers, and Axe, Marco, and Jake go running out of the mall through the parking lot to the grocery store next door. By this point, the mall cops are still chasing him, and the police are like on the way. I don't know why. I guess a kid eating a bunch of making a scene at the mall is a reason for the police to arrive, or maybe somebody called them when he started morphing. I don't. Very fast police presence, I guess. So they go into the grocery store. They push a row. they push a thing of carts in front of the doors to like slow them down when they get in there, when the police or whoever is chasing them get in there. And also all the people in the grocery store are like, oh my God, it's a monster because of Axe. Obviously, they don't know what aliens are. Apparently no controllers at this store. Marco starts shouting that there's a bomb in the store and everyone should run. And so obviously everyone's like running to the exit already. If they see the monster, they're running to the exit. And if they hear there's a bomb, they're running to the exit. And they're hoping that between the people trying to escape and the grocery carts that they put in the way, that will give them enough time to escape, basically. Apparently all the people did run well enough that they were left alone to make their way to the lobster tank, get the lobster DNA, take off all their clothes, and hide that and the Radio Shack goods in a garbage nearby, and then get into the lobster tank and morph into lobsters. So they hang out as lobsters for as long as they can, 2 hours about, right? And at some point, they had been picked up and put into ice. So we don't really know what's going on because the lobsters can't see very well, and we just know that we're in ice. They don't even feel movement. When they're on ice, they're kind of like sluggish and stuff. So they're about to be unmorphing because the time limit's coming, and they can feel heat and being like picked up, and then there's heat nearby. Yeah, they're being brought to a pot of boiling water. Somebody had purchased them at the store and was about to cook them. I honestly cannot believe that I did not remember any of this plot here, because like this feels like really classic horror stuff, being boiled alive in a body you can't recognize. Maybe not that, maybe I'm the weirdo here for thinking that, but I feel like it's like pretty horrific for like a children's book. They unmorph because what choice do they have? Time is running out and they don't want to die as lobsters, I guess. And they're in some lady's kitchen and she bought 6 lobsters. Luckily all 3 of them were picked as half the lobsters. 3 of the 6 lobsters she just bought turned into some humans and an alien, and she is just screaming the whole time. Luckily no one else was in the house, I guess, and she's like just screaming the entire time, and they were like, no, this is just a dream. Does that work? Would that ever work? Do people really think like, yeah, that was just a whole dream? But like, they also say, take those other lobsters and put them in the ocean and release them. And then tell her it was just a dream. And it's like, what? There's no way that she's gonna like think that was just a dream. She has like the purchase of 6 lobsters on her receipt or something, right? But also 6 lobsters? Damn, this lady's loaded. Lobsters aren't cheap. So Axe morphs back into human and they all just leave. I guess that's where the scene ends. And I was just like, well, I hope nobody took the trash out at the supermarket or all their stuff's going to be gone. And also, what about cameras? Grocery store's definitely going to have cameras, right? It's going to see people turning into lobster. And especially after so many people ran out of the grocery store screaming monster or bomb or whatever, like the cops would check the cameras, or the controllers, or the cop trollers for sure, right? They all must have got home without incident, because it just cuts to Marco having a nightmare about being a lobster, and his dad wakes him up out of it. He talks about how his dad isn't doing so great after the last 2 years when his mom died, and they both miss her. And it cuts to Axe being done building the thingy-majiggy, the distress beacon. And it turns out they did get their stuff from the trash just fine, except for the zero-space transponder, which they don't have one. Tobias says, well, Assistant Principal Chapman talks to Visser 3. Does that mean he has a transponder? And yes, it does. And guess what? They can even take the piece that they need, because it's like the size of a pea, and it won't even break the rest of the communication thing. At least not in a way that anyone will notice right away. But they can't get back into the Chapman house as the cat, and they can't risk anything. They can't do anything that's going to risk Melissa being turned into a controller. So whatever will they do? Well, Cassie has an idea. Ants. So they decide black ants, because that is what is near the Chapman house. That's like a native ant in the area. The only experience they have with bugs so far is Jake as a flea. And he says he couldn't perceive much of anything except for like warmth. Do ants see very well? Well enough to get from like outside to the basement, inside, and then back out again? I don't know. And also like aren't ants really territorial? Whatever comes across them would try to fight them or eat them or something, right? Like, it's not just other ants, like any bugs, right? And also, like, what if they don't even have, like, what if they just get swept up in the antness of it and lose themselves? Oh, that would be scary to be an ant. Anyways, Marco's talking to Jake, and he's telling Jake about how next Sunday is the 2-year anniversary of his mom disappearing, and he doesn't want to leave his dad too, because his mom took a boat out to sea during a storm, even though she'd never done that before. And I'm not sure if it reads as she's never been on a boat before, or if she's never been reckless and taken a boat out during sea before. They clearly had a boat, but like they all went out at the same time. I don't really know how to read if the mom would have had the skills to do the boat thing alone, or if it was like she wasn't the type to be reckless like that. But the boat was found crashed against the rocks, and the mom was not. And just a frayed safety rope was left over. And then it just cuts to, so they all got ants from Cassie's place. Uh-oh. Those are not going to be the same, like, colony as the ants near the Chapman house. That's probably a problem, right? They're in the backyard of the house next to the Chapman place, and because it's empty. It's for sale. What luck. And Chapman is out doing a sharing meeting, so they know he's not home, but it's also nighttime. So Tobias is there to like help watch and like give him directions and stuff, but he says that he can't see much better than humans in the dark. But if they stay above ground, he should be able to see them. But like, ants are really small. How good is my eyesight that bad? I feel like it'd be really hard to follow a couple of ants across a yard. But also, couldn't Tobias or any of them really carried them a little bit closer to the house so they didn't have to walk across the yard? Well, anyways, they're in the backyard. The plan is being enacted. They're going to go in as ants, get the piece, get out. Marco starts to morph. He turns into an ant, and he says he can vaguely tell like light from dark, but mostly he senses through like smell through his antenna. He says that the ant brain took over and could recognize the smell of all sorts of things around him, that they're in enemy territory. It's dangerous. There's going to be killing soon. And he just wants to find some food and return to the colony. And while he's trying to adjust to this, Tobias is like, you guys, you're going the wrong way. Like, all of them just got like taken over by the ant mind. It had like a very singular focus of like no sense of self for them to like grab onto to like hold themselves, I guess. Again, Tobias is just so good at seeing like 5 ants, and he's just like, yeah, those 5 over there in the grass. It's actually it's clarified a little bit that Tobias is standing in the grass staring at them. I could just imagine a hawk like just staring down into some grass watching a few ants. That's kind of funny to me. So all of them ended up walking towards like a beetle carcass that they're trying to dismantle with their mandibles and like, you know, take back to the colony. And Tobias this whole time is like, snap out of it, you guys. And they do. And they all start freaking out about like, oh my God, ants are just like, this is like, oh gosh, what did they describe it as? They described them as just being like a cog in a big machine, and they're not relatable in any way. Like, just unthinking machines. Tobias is like, there's some other ants headed towards you, and maybe we should just scrap the mission. Like, you know, this is getting like out of hand already. Maybe we should scrap the mission. But nobody wants to do that because nobody wants to go through this experience again, which is sort of understandable, but like, why not? Why not wait until you have like a little bit better control of the morph or something? Like, what is the rush to get Axe the part that he needs? 1 or 2 days of practice isn't going to hurt, right? They all managed to get control, start going in the right direction, and not get turned around at all. They could smell the scent of enemies all around, but Tobias is not going to follow them into the Chapman yard because that would be kind of suspicious, I guess. So they're walking mostly blind, but they say that the ant vision is like a grainy black and white TV. Tobias is just like, keep headed in that direction, and they make it. They reach the foundation of the house, and they're looking for a way down, and they find some cracks and some tunnels, and the entire time, they're all like, I sense enemies, and in my brain, I'm just like, alarm bells are going off, because ants have a lot of enemies, I'm pretty sure. I feel like ants are only, they just have numbers. And we only have like 4 or 5 ants here. I can't, how many? Jake, Marco, Cassie, Rachel, and Axe. We have 5 ants here. That is not a lot of numbers. Couldn't they have, like, what if there's how many, 1 centipede could take them all out, right? Like, I think centipedes are a predator thing, right? I don't know. Or just other ants, right? There's a lot of other ants. And they can't exactly unmorph when they're in a wall, I think. This whole thing, while this is going on, I'm just like, oh my God, that would make me so claustrophobic to be in like a tiny cramped space like that. At least I think that my human brain would be very claustrophobic. So they find a tunnel and they say it smells really bad, but they decide to go in anyways and just hope for the best and hope whatever it is isn't there. And Marco actually says, like, I should have felt claustrophobic, but the ant mind finds these tunnels pretty nice. And so they're going and they find a whole bunch of side paths. In one of them, a smaller ant sees them and just turns around and runs away. And they're like, oh, we're safe now. More alarm bells. That's totally going to be an ant going for backup, right? Like, they sense air and they follow that continuously to an opening, and they feel like they're in a big room because it's really open all around now. Marco's like, I'll unmorph first. And so he does. And he gets to a place where he's not like hanging horizontally, and he starts unmorphing. And he's about to start, like, he's in a dark room, and he's like, I'm going to turn on a light. And he's about to start moving around. And he's like, what if I crush my friends? And so instead he starts like fumbling around and like feeling on the wall for a light switch and stuff. And he finds a lamp and turns that on. But he still could have crushed his friends under his big hands, his big old human hands, right? Like, ant bodies are nothing against our human fingers. They're all fine. They all unmorph. And this is the office. Rachel's like, yep, I was in here as a cat. This is definitely the place. How big is this office? It's got 4 kids and an Andalite in here. I feel like it was described as a really small room, but they're small kids and a small Andalite. And they're all talking. They're like, ants are so creepy and we don't want to do that again. But like, they're going to have to get out of here, right? They're all rifling around in the desk looking for things. And Axe picks up this small cube. It shoots up a little display on top of it, like a little hologram or something. Because you know how computers of the future all have just the worst interfaces. Like, I don't know. Anyways, so Marco is like, oh, is it a computer? And Axe is like, yeah. How would Axe know what a computer is? I don't know. Computers are an Earth thing, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe the word isn't like, maybe the word computer is like some sort of like, is it a machine that does calculations or like, you know, I don't know. So Axe is like holding it and Marco's like, oh, what's this? It looks like a folder. And so he like pokes at it and it opens. And they're like, you know, just randomly poking at folders and stuff. Like, what if he accidentally starts an executable or something? It's fine. It's fine, though. But he's poking at it and he's opening things. And Axe is like, you know how to use a computer? And Marco's like, yeah, it's like ours on Earth, but it's just way more advanced. It's nothing like ours. Okay, especially in 1996 or whatever. Like, so they're randomly clicking on things in this computer, and they stumble onto some documents in an alien language. But luckily, Axe can read that language, and he's like, "Uh-oh, this one's an announcement that Visser 1 is arriving soon." And then he goes on to explain that Visser is a title. The Andalites think that there's 47 Vissers, with 1 being more powerful than 3, and 3 being more powerful than 4, etc., etc. I wonder, is 3 so powerful that he gets leeway to kill his minions? And at what number do they stop, like, giving them the leeway to throw their subordinates out of airlocks? Probably like number 40 or something, right? So we also learned Visser 3 is the only Andalite controller or the only Andalite Visser, but also that Visser 1 has a human body. I know something you don't know. At this point, I remember who Visser 1 is, but I'm not going to spoil it. Just know that this is another little sprinkle of foreshadowing, and there's been a few other mentions in the previous books that are allude to this. Eventually, Axe finds the little part that he's looking for. They put it next to the crack that they came in on, and they morph back into ants to carry it out. Luckily, it's going to fit through this whole thing, I guess. They said that the ants barely fit, but I guess this thing is just barely the size of an ant. I don't know. Nobody's looking forward to being ants again, but whatever. They do it. They get the transponder into the crack. They're moving along the tunnel, having to clear stuff out of the way occasionally. All seems to be going well. And then, the tunnel fills up with enemy ants. And they all just start getting they all start getting mobbed by ants, getting bit all over, being torn apart, like legs are coming off of them and stuff like that. They have no defenses or anything against this. Do ants coordinate their fight? Or do they even know, if I bite here, this will injure another ant the most? Or do they just bite whatever they can get a hold of? I imagine it must be just bite whatever you can get a hold of, but I don't know. I don't think that we can take the author's word on how any of this sees or feels from an animal's perspective, because they did minimal research and it's made up. So they're attacked by hundreds or thousands of ants, just outnumbered, being torn apart, and they're like, well, we have no choice. We're going to unmorph right here. They all are like, yep, let's unmorph right here. And luckily they were near the surface, and they pushed their way through the dirt into the yard, and they came out on top of an anthill, and everyone survived, and they got the transponder, and nobody was crushed by Earth as they unmorphed, even though they were on top of each other, in relation. I have no idea how nobody got crushed under the weight of all that. The Earth just let them come out of it. I've never been buried under Earth like that, so I can't really speak. They didn't say how deep it was, but they did say that they stomped the area back down to make it less noticeable. I just think that they have amazing luck. I tell you what. I can't do a very good Hank Hill impression. The next bit talks about how Marco didn't sleep well. None of them did. He saw his dad was a wreck in the morning as the anniversary of his mom's death gets closer. He talks about what if one of them snaps under the all this animal morphing stuff and just can't handle it anymore, like his dad did after his mom died. And he feels like he lost both parents instead of just his mom when his mom disappeared. So at school the next day, they're all none of them got very much sleep. And Marco and Rachel happen to be sitting next to each other at lunch. And some bully, mean girl bumps into Rachel and is like, watch it. And Rachel gets really aggressive back and shoves her and starts screaming at her and stuff. And Marco tries to get between them, and the bully girl punches and hits Marco in the eye. So Marco gets a black eye, and all three of them get sent to the assistant principal's office for a talking to. They all get a little what's going on here talk. None of them are, no one's talking, but they all have to go make an appointment with the student counselor. And Marco and Rachel, when they're leaving, have a little chat about Rachel's sorry I lost my cool, but I'm glad you're here for comic relief and keep it up. Cut to a few days later, Axe finishes its distress beacon, and they're coming up with a plan of when to use it and where to use it, because they don't want to use it anywhere that can be tied back to them naturally. And Tobias tells them that there's an abandoned rock quarry, about an hour's flight away, and Axe can get a northern harrier bird from Cassie's barn. Next Saturday, they're gonna enact the plan. So they're all leaving. Jake and Marco are walking home after they all leave Cassie's, and Marco is telling Jake, he's like, I'm in it for this mission, but no more. I'm out, and nobody's gonna guilt me into changing my mind, because he has to make sure that his dad doesn't have to leave flowers at 2 graves. And Jake is like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I think that we all know that Marco is not quitting the team, right? And I have a pretty good idea at this point how that's going to come to be. I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to spoil it for you, because it's more suspenseful and there's going to be more foreshadowing. Maybe you can figure it out. Let me know in the comments if you figure it out before I give the reveal. They're all flying to the quarry. Axe is going on about how cool it is, and the eyesight is so great and better than humans' eyes, better than Andalite's eyes. And I just realized, could Axe not give them his DNA so that they could all morph into an Andalite and see what that's like? I mean, obviously he could. They gave him their DNA. Is Andalite too proud to give DNA? I don't know. One of them is carrying the transponder. It's about the size of a TV remote. And I wonder, like an Apple TV remote or like one of those big honkers from the 90s, like this. And they say, we're an unlikely flock with an eagle and a hawk and two other birds of prey and a northern harrier. And so, like, I guess sometimes it matters that they don't want to fly as a bunch of different birds, but this time it's totally fine. I guess maybe they're flying inland. There's no bird watchers to see them. I don't know. So they get to the quarry, and all but Axe are going to morph into their best attackers, and Axe is going to stay as an Andalite because he doesn't have a better morph. They're going to take down the controllers at the controls of the ship and then be on their way. They're going to hide under a nearby overhang, just keeping out of sight. I think it's all going to go super smoothly. I mean, I can't see anything wrong with this, right? The Yeerks aren't going to recognize that, like, hey, we don't have any missing ships or anything, right? Like, what if they send more than one bug fighter? No, this plan is fine. So Jake morphs into a tiger, Rachel into an elephant, Marco a gorilla, and Cassie into a wolf. And the first thing that popped into my head is that elephant gonna fit under the little outcropping that they described? And then my second thought, somehow like Kung Fu Panda or Zootopia? It made me think of like one of those movies and like tried to imagine them as like a rogue rebel group in outfits and everything, even though animals don't wear outfit and they're not anthropomorphic like that. Axe tells them like, wow, there's such a variety of animals on Earth, and someday after the war is over, Andalites should come here and try some of them out as like on vacation and stuff, like as a vacation experience. And I have to like, I thought Andalites knew about Earth but not about animals, I guess? Did the Andalites not have a variety of things that they could morph into? I mean, they had creatures on their moons. Whatever. But I mean, I guess this is like four pretty different animals, like one from the jungle and the plains and the forest and another forest. I'm not sure where all these creatures live, but they're all in very, very different locations for sure. They activate the distress beacon, get into their morphs and hide, and a bug fighter comes down, lands, and one Hork-Bajir comes out. And instead of looking around, he just stands there. And they're like, this is too easy. Where's the taxon? Whatever. They go take down the Hork-Bajir, but they don't, like, kill him. Rachel just, like, puts her elephant foot on him, and he just lays there. And she's like, well, that's kind of weird. Hork-Bajir don't usually give up like this. And they're about to go into the ship and, like, get the taxon out of there. But lo, there's Dracon beams being fired from all sorts of directions above them. And the entire quarry is surrounded in Hork-Bajir with Dracon beams. And then out of the ship, Visser 3 comes out. With that, all of the main aliens are introduced and described, as is the way. Visser 3 is taunting them as usual, saying like, he has them now. And didn't you know we change our frequencies? I mean, basic security, right? He says, well, today's your lucky day. We're going to go back to the mothership and you're going to get to go meet Visser 1. And you're going to do it in all these morphs that you're in for some reason. And they're all herded into Visser 3's blade ship that decloaked next to them or whatever. And it's really roomy inside, I guess. And Marco's talking, at least in his head, about how his dad's going to have to go see his mom's grave alone tomorrow, and he's going to die just like her. They're all talking about how they're probably going to die. What can we do way out here in space? And here I realized, like, the Council of 13 is definitely going to hear about, like, there's Andalite survivors, right? Like, Visser 1 would tell them, right? They talk about how they're going to die or be controllers. And I have to wonder, why wouldn't the Yeerks infest them either way? Like, even if they were going to kill them, infest them, get the information, take the Yeerks out and kill them. Like, either way, you get information. Like, I don't know. Even if they were trapped into the animal morphs, they could still do that, right? Like, I don't know. I'm not sure how it works. I don't know the thought process. I know they can't take over too small of creatures, but like, maybe they can't take over an elephant. Maybe that's too big, but like a wolf, a tiger, a gorilla, definitely an Andalite. So they're all on their way to space. A big window opens up in the side of the ship and they can see the Earth and they're like, ooh, pretty. And then like the ship turns and they can see the mothership, the Yeerk mothership. And Axe is like, oh, this part here is the engines and this part's the sensors here. And like he's explaining a few things to them. I like that, like, yeah, him being on the team gives them like a reason to know like some of the information, you know, incorporate it a little bit easier into the story. They say that the ship is like as big as a city, and how come humans don't see it? And he's like, because it's usually cloaked and shielded, and Visser's just showing it to us to intimidate us. They land in the mothership, and there's the standard controllers, and then there's a, you know, the standard like Hork-Bajir and Taxxons and humans, and then 2 or 3 other undisclosed species of controllers. Some of them are wearing dark red, some of them are wearing brown, simple uniforms, and then there's other ones that are wearing red and black uniforms, and other ones that are wearing gold and black uniforms. One of them is probably for Visser 1, and one of them's probably for Visser 3, is what I'm thinking. But also, you gotta be fashionable. When you're taking over civilizations, you gotta make some outfits for your people, dress them up cute and stuff. So the boring solid color ones are like on the outer perimeter, and all the other ones are like lined up into formations. It is explained that the red and black and the red and gold are different armies for the different Vissers. They don't seem to like each other, but they're all lined up in a formation arranged by species. I guess Visser 3 wasn't on the ship with them because he's walking through the armies with an escort next to him, as well as another someone. And here we learn it is Visser 1. And do you want to know who Visser 1 is? It's a human. It's Marco's mom. Marco obviously immediately recognized her as her, and Visser is the whole time just like expositing. He's like, see, Visser 1, all the Andalite shenanigans are under control. You've wasted a trip. He doesn't know that this is all of the Andalites, right? And Visser 1 might want to take control of the operation. Like, this is my jurisdiction now, Visser 3. Like, you know, something like that. Jake is telling Marco, like, don't do anything suspicious. Don't do anything rash. Marco's freaking out like, oh my god, my mom's alive. And Visser 1 and 3 are just bickering, and the different colored troops, like different uniformed troops, just all seem to be on edge. Here we're learning that like Visser 1 started the like human invasion and gave information to the Yeerks, and Visser 3 is now he's fumbling it, and Visser 1 is like, you think you're gonna take over from me? Like, you can't handle this title. The council definitely wouldn't give it to somebody like you. They don't like Yeerks who make mistakes. And then she just snaps her fingers, and her army just walk away. Kind of a waste of resources, if you ask me, to like have your whole army show up just to like turn around and walk away. But whatever. Visser 3 he stays behind and continues taunting the group and talking about how he's going to make 6 new hosts for his best lieutenants. And Axe, for some reason, so Axe is the only one who speaks. And he's all like, no way, you Yeerk scum. And Visser 3 he's like, how come only one of you is ever talking? Axe just can't keep his cool, can he? He just really can't. He just can't stop giving info. Visser also wonders why, like, none of them unmorph. And then he's also like, well, yeah, why would I let anybody else have the power to morph? I'll just torture you and get information instead. And so he tells some guards, he's like, lock them up, triple the guard, kill them if anything suspicious looks like it's happening. And they get locked into a cell, trying to think of a way to escape, but it's just like an empty room around them. Even if they did manage to get out, there's a lot of controllers around. Marco's just thinking about his mom the whole time, and like, how long was she a controller? Was she a controller before she disappeared? Was she a controller at Christmas? Jake is the only one who recognized Marco's mom. None of the rest know that Marco's mom is Visser 1, and Marco tells Jake, like, nobody else can know. I don't know why, but he says, let's keep this a secret. Anyways, so they only have 30 minutes left in their morph, and they figure the best chance they got is to try to unmorph, and then morph into ants and see if they can escape into any crack that they can possibly find or something. And just as they're about to start unmorphing, the door to the room opens up. There's a number of Hork-Bajir standing there with the gold and black uniform, and the red and black Hork-Bajir guards are laying on the floor behind them incapacitated or dead. We don't know. And one of these new Hork-Bajir starts talking in like a really good English speech, because usually they speak with like a mashup of like English and alien, but this one, perfect English. And he starts telling them like, there's a guard station down the hall. You take the first left here, you take the first right here, you go down 15 floors down this chute, and there's a ship that is programmed to drop you off right where we captured you. But that elephant, that's going to be too big for the like ship, and they should get going. And any Visser 3 troops that they see on the way, they're going to have to deal with on their own. So it looks like Visser 1 is sabotaging Visser 3. He's already making a mess of this invasion, but like, politics, yo. So Visser 1's saboteurs leave, and the group, they take their opportunity to leave and go down the hall as instructed. There's the guards at the guard station. They take them out. More guards are coming, and they keep taking them out, but they're like, we can't take them out forever. There's going to be too many at some point. Eventually, the guards don't keep coming enough that they overwhelm them. They just eventually kind of hang back and keep like herding them in the direction they were already going. And like Jake's holding them off with a tiger. Why didn't the guards have Dracon beams? I mean, I guess you wouldn't want to put a hole in your ship, especially if doing that in space, because that would be kind of bad. They end up getting to the drop shaft, is what it was called, and they get to there. It's basically an elevator that just works based on your thoughts, and you just dive into this like opening, and you think of a floor you want to go to, and you end up on that floor. That is so cool. That is awesome. I want that. They know what floor they're going to, so they stop at the floor they're going to. All the rest of the guards who jumped in go shooting past. They don't know, like, they didn't make it. They're all running to the escape pod. Rachel's trying to unmorph from the elephant so that she could fit. Marco picks her up he's the gorilla. He picks her up and carries her the rest of the way while she's morphing. They all cram in and start unmorphing with just minutes to spare. And the book ends. They all get into the ship, make it back, I guess, because the book ends with Marco and his dad visiting his mom's grave. And his dad is like, look, I've been a pretty crappy dad for these last couple of years, and on Monday, I'm going to go try to get my old job back, because your mom wouldn't want me to, like, give up and not be taking care of you. And Marco is just thinking, like, I'm not going to give up, and I'm going to save her. And that's basically how the book ends. My thoughts? Pretty good. I know that's not much. I like the idea of the Yeerks being, like, coordinated enough to take over worlds, but also, like, backstabbing and like all this politics to ruin all the plans, like possibly fumbling the invasions and stuff. Very human, very demure. Other than that, I think that they need to get better at planning. They know what the mothership looks like now. They've seen a few random alien controllers yet to be named. So the author has some like stuff to like insert into future books should they want. All of the morphing fights come down till the last second. It feels suspenseful, but isn't that going to get old? I also feel like I don't really know where the book is going to go from here. I mean, I didn't remember them trying to commandeer a ship, but it makes sense. Get Axe home. That's a plot, right? I guess I don't really know where any of these books is going when they start. They just seem to stumble into a plot. How did you feel about Marco's mom? Do you feel did you see that coming? Was that I noticed that it was foreshadowed for sure. There was little breadcrumbs that were placed, and they mentioned Marco's mom a lot, which in this book specifically, which you could attribute to it being Marco's book, but also I was like, oh, they're going to introduce her this book, which introduces a new baddie, like for the team to have to contend with as well. That is one of the plot points that I actually remembered before I started reading the books again. So I'm surprised that it happened so early in the series, but they did make a lot of references. I'm not entirely sure why Visser 1 didn't start the invasion didn't continue the invasion, I guess. Like, why hand it off to Visser 3 at all? What do the Yeerks do for fun? It's never described that they do anything in their downtime. What do Yeerks do for fun? I'll take over and no play makes Yeerks a sad bunch or something. Maybe taking over civilizations is the fun? They reference the Council of 13 again. I wonder if that's gonna like get shown and fleshed out more at some point. I also wonder how many Yeerk pools are there? Like there can't just be the one that's in that city that they're in, right? Like there's got to be multiple across the globe because the Yeerks are trying to take over the whole planet. They would want people in different places, right? Especially since they need to go back to those pools every few days. I don't really get why Marco doesn't want the others to know that Visser 1 is his mom. Jake is the only one that he told, presumably the only one who knew that he was going to quit the team. Obviously, he's not going to do now. Yeah, I don't really understand why he wouldn't want the others to know, like, that's his mom and they want to save her. You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't them not knowing that it's his mom make it more likely that they would, like, accidentally injure her if there was a fight or something? Because I feel like this is going to lead to like a battle and it's going to be just Visser 1 and one of them, and Marco's going to have to step in and be like, no, don't hurt Visser 1, and they're all going to be like, what do you mean? And then he's going to be like, you don't understand why I'm saving this Visser here. And it's like, yeah, we don't understand, but if you had told them that's my mom, then they would totally understand, right? It just makes me think of like TV shows where the dialogue is always so like, the dialogue and the situations are always like a friend being like, did you kill that guy? And then instead of being like, yeah, but in like self-defense, you go, you wouldn't understand, I had to. Like, just tell him it was in self-defense and the guy was trying to kill you. Like, there's no reason to like make it sound more suspicious. The book was pretty short. It flew by. It definitely introduced a lot of edges to the world that can be built upon. And so I like that. What are your thoughts? Did you enjoy this? Was there anything that I missed? Leave me a comment. Let me know. Subscribe if you're not. I plan to continue coming out with these as long as I'm able and as long as I keep reading the books. Until next time, thank you for listening. Bye.